Welcome to the first ever presidential candidate guest speaking at a TikTok town hall where we are talking about the First Amendment. We are hosting a panel of amazing creators to talk about a serious issue tonight focused on censorship and the First Amendment, particularly with some discussion about the TikTok ban. And after our conversation, we will have presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Joining us. We are incredibly humbled to have him here. And I hope you guys enjoy the next little bit while we ask some important questions and spend some time with a presidential candidate that actually was willing to come down and speak to the people without the filter of the mainstream media.
And I apologize for the quality of this video. My plane came in late to Tampa, and so I'm driving right now across north central Florida, and I'm in a car, so I apologize to everybody. I was hoping to be in a hotel by now, but you know, this is what they're trying to do in Congress is it's perverse, it's twisted, it clearly violates the First Amendment. It also violates the Fifth Amendment, which protects property rights. You can't just go take away somebody's property in this country without due process and just compensation. And it's about, you know, we've seen this this impulse by government, particularly over the last 3 years since the COVID epidemic, to openly censor speech of Americans. And, you know, a lot of this stuff, I'm on TikTok. I have an account on TikTok. It's important for me to be able to communicate to people from TikTok. There's a lot of content in TikTok that I disagree with, but that's what democracy is about. Hamilton, Madison, and Adams said that they put the guarantee of free expression in the First Amendment because all of the other rights depend on it. If you have a government that can censor its critics or control what the public hears or learns, control the sources of their information, that government has license for any atrocity. I would say this: there is no exception for national security in the United States Constitution. The United States Constitution was written for hard times. The Supreme Court, Justice Taney, wrote an opinion saying you can't do it. It doesn't matter if the life of the nation is at stake. It doesn't matter that, you know, hundreds of thousands of people are being killed. He said freedom of speech is more important right than anything else. And you can't trample it. In every case, the dystopian future begins with restrictions on speech. It's the beginning of, it's the first step toward, on the slippery slope toward totalitarianism. And there's never been a time in history when we look back and we say that the guys who were censoring speech were the good guys. They're always the bad guys, and they're the bad guys today. Listen, they banned RT-TV, which is Russian language. They're trying to ban Al Jazeera. I am offended by that. I want to hear what the Russians think about us. I want to hear what, you know, what Al Jazeera thinks about Israel. I have my own feelings about Israel, and Al Jazeera is going to disagree with me, but I want to hear what they're saying. It's important. It's, you know, democracy is about trusting the demos, the people, to, if we have a free flow of information, that the policies and the ideas that are annealed in the furnace of debate will rise up and will triumph in that marketplace of ideas. And that is the advantage that democracy has on any other system of government. By the way, I spent a lot of years litigating against factory farms in this country. The biggest factory farms are Smithfield farms, which are polluting the environment. Smithfield controls 30% of pork production in this country. They're destroying farm communities. And guess who owns them? China.
Yeah, China.
So if we're concerned about, you know, about China infiltrating our country, we ought to start with our food supply, because they can starve us. And they're buying American farmland. They're buying American food production companies. And guess what else? I spent a lot of the last couple of years writing about, I wrote a book about the Wuhan lab. Guess who was financing the Wuhan lab? We were. Guess who was financing coronavirus bioweapons development in the Wuhan lab? We were. We were giving that technology, that cutting edge technology to the Chinese. Oh, if we're really worried about the Chinese, we should stop funding their bioweapons development. We should stop them from controlling U.S. universities, which they're doing through millions, of dollars. We should stop them from controlling our utilities, our communication systems. There's so many. We should stop deindustrializing our country and sending all of our factories over to China. If we're really worried about it, that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be going after TikTok. We have destroyed this generation of kids, and they can't buy houses. The kids who are using TikTok, we're destroying their capacity to start businesses. The one place that a lot of them are finding a gateway for their entrepreneurial energies is TikTok.
That's right.
They're going on TikTok, they're starting businesses. We should be proud of that. We should encourage them. And there's not a big impediment, to them getting on it. They're not charging people the way that Meta is going to start charging verified accounts, and for boosting. You can go on there. If you have an imagination, if you're resourceful, if you're entrepreneurial, you can figure out a way to make money. And there are hundreds of thousands of people in this generation who are doing that. And now we're going to take that away from them. It is crazy.
Thanks, Bobby. You have an amazing night, and we hope to have you back soon. Truly.
Thank you. You guys.
Have a good night. Well, wow.
Thanks, Bobby. That was so cool. It was so cool that he was in the car. He's like, my flight was late. I'm driving. I'm just a dude with a phone, but I'm in a car and I can talk on the phone to the people. That was pretty cool, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think.
Go ahead, Stephen, please.
I said I agree. I think it's firsthand representation of the access to information that TikTok allows us to consume. Just the availability and the access to information, regardless of who anybody chooses that they're going to be voting for. In my opinion, this is just an example of our leaders that are standing behind and supporting our right, our First Amendment right to freedom of speech, as well as the Fifth Amendment right that this TikTok ban poses to every single American user. 170 million American users of the application.
It was like, we're so willing to discard an independent candidate, the quickness with which people will disregard it. I mean, without looking at the situation we're in. If you look at private equity, you look at the military industrial complex, you look at big ag, you look at the insider trading, you look at all these things that they've all participated in. And yet he just gave us a synopsis off the top of his head, by the way, off the top of his head, about all these other things that we are all sitting here nodding and being like, yep, this, I agree with this. And then one thing, and it can turn off an entire voter base. And I'm just really confused sometimes at this polarity that we see. I'm not going to sit here and pine for any candidate, really. But I think we all need to be really careful of how quick we are to judge an independent candidate at a time when we need an independent candidate more than ever. And I would just be really careful of that. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do or who to vote for. Just make sure you're holding everybody to that standard.
What RFK said at the end, he said, stop complaining and start organizing.
Yes.
And that's what needs to be done. And it doesn't happen unless we have a conversation. So thank you for this conversation.